Are you still paying outrageous premiums from the big guys? At SD Bullion, we don't spend millions sponsoring NASCAR teams and renting out floors on Trump Tower. We simply offer our customers the lowest priced gold and silver bullion anywhere. Get the service, shipping speed, and personal attention your order deserves at SD Bullion. Did you know that SD Bullion has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau and has one of the highest customer satisfaction ratings in the industry? What are you waiting for? From the basics like eagles, maples, rounds, and bars, to collector coins like Silver Shield and the Heroes SD War Collection, to our new line of the best tasting, GMO-free survival food on the market, SD Bullion has what you are looking for at the lowest prices, period. Guaranteed! Because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. SD Bullion, founded by stackers to help you prepare for what's coming. Shop with the doc today at sdbullion.com.
This is the Doc and Eric Dubin with the SD Weekly Metals and Markets Wrap. This week we have a special guest on the show for and really a special episode for you here. We have Egon von Greyerz from Matterhorn Asset Management in Switzerland. It's a great pleasure to finally have you on the show, Egon.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on your show for the first time. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're recording this interview on the last day of October, here October 31st, and needless to say, the markets are, the gold and silver markets are receiving quite the beatdown today. We'll be publishing this show a little bit closer to the Swiss gold referendum, and really that's why we wanted to bring you on for this special episode, Egon, is to really discuss what's going on over in Switzerland with your campaign on the Swiss gold referendum to potentially back the Swiss franc again, or require it to be back with physical gold. It's
an interesting day because you know it's important not to focus on the very short term. If we are buying precious metals, physical precious metals, for wealth preservation purposes. So, and from that point of view, you should never watch the price on a daily basis. Of course, that doesn't stop us from looking at our screens and seeing that we're seeing new lows in this phase here, below the 28th of June 2013 lows at 1178, and we're down at 1165 now. So what has happened in the world now, I love to blame the Swiss National Bank for this, but they probably, I think they did it, but I mean, it would be in their interest to have gold lower as an argument for not accepting the gold initiative. But I doubt it's clearly the deflationary situation and what is happening in Japan now with the printing of money. But if you actually look at a chart from this morning at 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock European time in the morning, gold was smashed down by about $14 in one tick. And that is not overnight when most markets are closed. That's when Europe had opened. So there is clearly some manipulation taking place in the markets, as always. But to me, this is the final exhaustion of the markets, both up in the stock market and down in the metals. So I think that we will, whether that will take another few days or a week or it will turn around quickly, I think we are just seeing final moves here, and there's absolutely no change in our views as regards the gold market. So that's that. But your question was about the Swiss Gold Initiative. So, but it's hard to disregard the short term, even if, as I said, that has nothing to do with long-term wealth preservation. So, in Switzerland now, yes, there is this Gold Initiative, which is a private referendum proposed by the people. If there is a list of 100,000 signatures signed by private individuals in Switzerland that proposed this gold initiative, which has 3 points, which is number 1, no further gold sales; number 2, back the Swiss National Bank's balance sheet with 20% gold. This initiative has 3 points. Number 1, no further gold sales by the Swiss National Bank. Number 2, that the balance sheet of the Swiss National Bank must be backed by gold to the extent of 20% minimum. and number 3, that all gold must be stored in Switzerland. So those are the 3 main points that the initiative proposes. If it is accepted and as a yes vote, and the final day of this referendum is on the 30th of November, if there's a yes vote, this becomes part of the Swiss constitution on the 30th of November, and Parliament or the Swiss National Bank or the government cannot change this because it's part of the constitution. It can only be changed by a further referendum.
You know, we take for granted to some extent our audience understanding of what's going on because we're a precious metal site. So just to give more people some context as to where this is coming from and what the perceptions are in terms of the Swiss public. Recently we had polls indicating that there was a slight leaning towards the yes vote, and I was wondering if that is in fact still what you see now in the news and also just the man on the street conversations, for lack of a better way of putting it.
It's an interesting point that because it's early days, there have been 2 polls, a very recent poll. The 2 polls that we have seen, and both showed around 45% for the yes vote and just under 40 for the no, and the balance being undecided. Now, some people have pointed out that these early polls are normally not typical for the final result for these referenda, but also what is clear is that the initiatives that are put forward from the right, which is the case with this initiative because it's put forward by members of the Swiss People's Party, and the initiatives that are put forward from the right, in those cases, earlier polls are more correct than if they're put forward from the left. So we don't know more than those 2 polls. I would say that there is not a high level of awareness amongst people in Switzerland about this gold initiative. If you talk to the man in the street, there are 2 more referenda on the same day, 30th of November. One is called EcoPop, which is about immigration, reducing the people who can come into Switzerland, and the other one is a tax proposal limiting the benefits for foreigners, the tax benefits for foreigners in Switzerland. So the immigration one, there's a lot more awareness, and people normally vote for all 3. So and the campaign for the Gold Initiative really started last week with a press conference, and then there's a traditional campaign with billboards that went up last week, and then there are leaflets to every household which are going out this week and next week. So that's when the awareness will increase. But if you look at the papers, there are articles every day. So there's a fast learning curve here for the people. Well, the good thing about this is that there are not strong emotions either way amongst the people. If you take immigration, people have very strong feelings about immigration, either one way or the other. But when it comes to the Gold Initiative, there are no strong emotions against amongst the people. If you talk to people, it's just that some of them are not aware. But most of them that you talk to that are aware, when I talk to normal people, they are actually for. Now, there are, of course, elements in Switzerland that are against it, and the Swiss National Bank is against it. Officially, they're not supposed to campaign against an initiative, the government or the National Bank, and they know that. But nevertheless, they are still doing it. They're saying that this is very dangerous to Switzerland because that means that we cannot. They don't use the word manipulate, but that's what they mean. We cannot manipulate our balance sheet and print as much money as we want. And of course, Switzerland has printed more money than any country in the Western world in the last few years. They printed 400 billion Swiss francs and bought euros for that in order to hold the peg between the euro and the Swiss franc at 120. So they have a balance sheet which is bigger than any, the Fed's balance sheet is, which is massive, is only 25% of GDP, and the Swiss National Bank is 80% of GDP. So they are printing money to the extent that if they continue, because that peg will not hold without more printing, they will destroy the Swiss franc. And that, of course, but they're telling the people that we can't afford not to print money, because then the Swiss franc will be too strong and it'll be bad for industry. So industry believes that it's good to have a weak Swiss franc, and the government believes so too. But you know, as I've been telling people, Switzerland has had a strong currency and low inflation for decades, and without money printing. And all of a sudden now, their national bank is using the same methods as any central bank in the world, or you know, which is more investment bank principles of printing money and blowing up your balance sheet. So this, in my view, is very dangerous for Switzerland. But so the government and the Swiss National Bank are preaching to the people, saying that this is very dangerous. But the Swiss people don't like being preached to and told how to vote. So because they like to take their independent view. And I think that the man in the street in Switzerland who has an affinity with gold, and most people do have that in Switzerland, they will be much more sympathetic to the yes vote. But it will be a hard fight.
Egon, do you think that there's a link in people's minds when it comes to the long history of the Swiss franc being a very strong currency in the 1970s? You know, Swiss franc was considered a safe haven currency, and all the turmoil that elevated the precious metals markets during that decade, in fact, helped the Swiss franc remain strong vis-a-vis other currencies. And I'm wondering, with the relatively new devotion to keeping the Swiss franc tied to the euro, and public perceptions looking at the instability in the European Union overall, I mean, there's definitely a factor of and a logic that people can understand in Switzerland when it comes to getting more financial stability. When people look at this in Switzerland, do they look at it strictly as an issue of increasing the soundness of the currency and its tie to gold, or is there also the question of what kind of relationship does Swiss nationals want to have vis-a-vis the Eurozone? Is there an additional questioning of the value of being tied to the euro?
Yeah, it's a good point, and you know, the Swiss have rejected being part of the EU and obviously of the euro. And this is a very good argument for the yes camp. You know, does the Swiss people want to tie their currency to a weak currency and a failed economic experiment that will not last? And of course that for the Swiss, they don't, because they see the problems in Europe, and Switzerland hasn't got those problems. Switzerland is still one of the strongest economies in Europe. So I think, as you say, that they don't like being part of the EU, and therefore that will be a very strong argument for people to vote yes for this gold initiative, in my view, and because we had actually that was Nigel Farage from the UKIP, the UK Independent Party, who is totally anti-euro and makes very good speeches. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have seen those in the European Parliament. I mean, he was speaking to an audience in Switzerland about 2-3 weeks ago, and it was extremely popular, got a lot of press because he made it very clear that he wants the UK out of the EU, which is a totally failed organization. And I think there's a lot of sympathy with that in Switzerland, which, as you rightly pointed out, will favor the yes vote.
Let's touch on for a minute. I'd like to get your thoughts on if the unthinkable happens, and when I say unthinkable, I mean in the minds of the bureaucrats, and the Swiss people do vote yes. We're talking that they would 20% of the Swiss National Bank's balance sheet is around 60 billion worth of Swiss francs that they would be required to purchase in physical gold. I don't see that being available on the market. I'd like to get your thoughts on the implications were a yes vote to happen, Egon.
Yes, well, first of all, there is they have actually 5 years to buy that amount of gold. They don't have to do it overnight. But otherwise, as you rightly say, I think the market has very little physical gold, period. So if they did buy it quickly, which they can do, they can buy it tomorrow or the day after the referendum, if it's a yes vote. Probably is a good price to buy that, but I'm sure they wouldn't. So they do have time, but of course it will have psychological effects for the market straight away if there is a yes vote. The other thing is, yes, you're right. If they do maintain their balance sheet at 500 billion Swiss francs, they would have to spend around 60 billion Swiss francs on buying gold. But of course, they have another alternative. They can use their primarily euro assets that they have bought in order to keep the Swiss franc low. They can use those assets instead and reduce the size of the balance sheet, so thereby they could buy less gold. I think they're unlikely to do that because they would be obviously afraid that then the peg would be attacked, but probably if there's a yes vote, the peg will be attacked anyway. So I think there's no chance if there's a yes vote to hold the peg. But even if there was a no vote, in my view, the peg will not hold anyway. There's no chance. Currency manipulation works short term, but it doesn't work over a period of time, because at some point in time there will always be somebody in the market attacking something which is artificial and should not be there. And definitely, although Switzerland has its problems, the Euroland has much bigger problems, and therefore, in my view, the Swiss franc, regardless of the outcome of the vote, will strengthen against the euro, and they won't be able to hold the peg, and then they will lose a fortune on their primarily euro assets, but also other European currency assets that they hold in the balance sheet. It's only a matter of if it's going to happen quickly after the 30th of November, or if it's going to happen more slowly, that the peg goes. But in my view, it will at some point go, and they will take big losses on the 400 billion investment in European securities, primarily euro ones.
Of course, it's interesting to point out the example of what's been going on with Germany vis-a-vis their repatriation requests. In 2013, they were only able to receive 5 metric tons, having requested, I believe it was 42 metric tons to be delivered in that year, and their time frame for delivery was 7 years, and most recently we've learned that they basically have backed off, that Angela Merkel had initially gone along with the program, but then not too long ago had said that, well, we're okay with gold remaining in the Federal Reserve Depository in the Bank of New York, and the speculation being that there is no gold to be able to back that request. And obviously a lot of people are speculating that this is going to put a lot more upward pressure on the price of gold going forward if in fact the purchasing would begin. But to what extent do you believe that the authorities in the Swiss National Bank and politicians there would in fact follow the dictates of the will of the people if the yes were to be concluded? What degree to which do you believe they could play games with paper gold and claims and not have the central bank's reserves audited and so forth to be able to pull this off if they would like to pretend that the repatriation was moving towards 20% of the central bank's assets?
No, you're making a very important point, which is that Germany asked to get 680 tons of their gold back from the United States, and they got 5 tons back. And we're told that the rest they might get by 2020. That is clearly the best proof that there is no gold. because if the gold was there, you can ship it the next day. So you know, the central banks don't have the gold they say they have, and most central banks in the world have never had an official audit, physical audit of their gold. And it's the same case with Switzerland. Switzerland holds its gold abroad, which is a third, or roughly 30% of their just over 1,000 tons. So they hold about 300 tons in the UK and in Canada. You know, they think that it's safe there, but they don't even know exactly. They've said themselves that they don't exactly know where it is and where it's held in these two countries. But clearly, I'm sure that their gold that is held abroad has been leased to the market or even sold, like most central bank has been. Because, as you know, we've seen this move now in the last couple of years, the move from the west to east of physical gold going to China and obviously going to India, who is continuously a big buyer, and where China is taking up basically the annual production of gold. So I don't think that there is that much gold left in the West in central banks, or not even within the bullion banks or the LBMA system. And you know, because before they shuffled the gold between the bullion banks, and the bullion banks would hold the gold of the central banks also to a great extent. But now China is taking delivery. So I think, as you say, that at some point in the next few months or next year, whatever it will be, the secret that we all know will come out. The secret that there is no gold in these banks, or very little gold, because you know we've seen many people have done very good reports on this. There just isn't the gold around. The 8,000 tons in the US, certainly not there, and the IMF for whatever it is, 3,000 tons. I'm sure that's double counted gold, and most gold in the world is double counted or triple counted. Plus, as you say, then you have the paper gold, which the paper gold trading market is 100 times bigger roughly than the physical gold market. And at some point, when the market realizes, and the catalyst could be the Swiss Gold Initiative, if there is a yes vote, or it could be something else. But at some point, when people start worrying about actually the paper gold that they're holding is not there and ask for delivery, gold will not go up by hundreds of dollars, but by thousands of dollars, and that will happen within the next few years.
We heard recently that PayPal had cut off the account that your firm was using to collect funds to support this initiative. Is there any update that has come? Do you know what PayPal's response to your inquiries have been? I believe it was maybe 3 days ago that this occurred. I forget which day it was. But our listeners would find that definitely of interest. PayPal being an American company that takes payments primarily for eBay, but they have a really large market share when it comes to electronic payments. And so what have you learned as far as PayPal and their relationship with your account?
Yes, I mean, that was, you know, they just closed the account without any warning. They had asked for documentation to prove, you know, the compliance type documentation, which we had given them. And of course, we are a regulated company in Switzerland, and we are also following all the rules and regulations in Switzerland. In Switzerland, it is allowed to take political donations or charitable donations without being a registered charity. They told us as a reason why they closed it, but they never said beforehand that they were going to close it. They said that, well, you are not a registered charity, so you can't take receive payments. Now, that might be the law in the US, but if we are a Swiss company and we are receiving donations in Switzerland, we are following the rules and the law of Switzerland, and according to those laws, we have the right to open hold an account and receive payments for political donations. We went to, after this happened 3 days ago, we went to a Swiss company that could perform the same service and told them that we want an account to receive political donations. They said, okay, fine, no problem, we're used to that. The only problem is it takes 3 weeks to open the account, and by that time the referendum is virtually over. We won't have time to do it. Not only did they just close the account without notice, they also have kept the money that was on the account, and we were getting, there was a very good amount of money coming in there every day. It's not just costing us the money that has come in, but it's costing us all the money that we would have got also. But of course, for PayPal, they don't give a damn about that, because according to their terms, they can do exactly what they want with any account. And you hear of other people who've also had their accounts closed by PayPal. So sadly, they're operating in a country and signing contracts with a company in the country that follows the rules and the laws of that country, but they define what terms they will want to operate under. They don't give a damn about the laws of Switzerland, clearly. Now, of course, yes, now the PayPal, of course, you start asking questions. Could there be other forces behind this that stop this? Well, we will never find out, let's say that, but of course it is not in, this initiative is not in the interest of many of the authorities around the world. So, you know, you can always ask the question, you will never have the answer anyway.
Right. PayPal has a history and a reputation in the United States among people who use eBay. That's not exactly sterling. They're very quick to make decisions about the business relationships they do and so forth. So, frankly, it wasn't that surprising that they did this. Out of curiosity, what was there a large percentage of people making donations around the world versus people in Switzerland making donations? I would imagine that would be the case.
This was from around the world. You know, there was because these were, let's say, friends of ours, whether they were friends like King World News or whether they were like Grant Williams, and also that wrote a newsletter about this, and also Greg Hunter with this USA Watchdog. People were very kind to put our donate buttons on these, and they went out to a very, very big number of people. So there was a very good flow of money coming in from all over the world. This was more directed to international payments. There is another campaign for Swiss payments, but this was more for international payments because, through our activities, we have a lot of support in the community for that wants sound money and understands the role of gold. So therefore, there was a tremendous amount of generous donations that, as I said, were we did not get and will not get either. So it's very upsetting. And because obviously it would have any donation helps to in order to make this campaign as successful as possible.
With the PayPal shut down and the accounts confiscated, do you have any a new way back up and running yet, Egon, that those who want to help contribute can do so?
Well, we are going to put up. There is of an account in Switzerland that people can pay into, but they have to transfer money. You can't do that with credit cards, so they have to transfer money to that, and so that is not as quick or as easy because, as I said, the Swiss domestic alternative, the Swiss company that provides the same service as PayPal, that would take 3 weeks to set up. So sadly, we won't have time for that. So we will put up an account name and number. There is an account in the name of the Gold Initiative where people can make transfers into. And it has been suggested that we should also have a cryptocurrency or a Bitcoin type of account, and we might put that up in the next day or two. But of course, that is only a smaller part of of the funds that we would receive, because most people today don't have that. But of course, people within our area, there are still quite a few who ask for it. So we probably will have a look at it. We can put that up also on our donate button.
All right. Well, before we wrap the show up, Egon, any other last thoughts for our listeners regarding the upcoming initiative?
Well, this could only happen in Switzerland, which is a tremendous country, because this is real democracy where people can actually put forward a proposal that changes the constitution of the country, and just by a number of people signing that initiative, and then it can turn into law, and it can turn into part of the constitution. And in this case, we will not see any other country in the world where this will be put forward in this way from the people, and to have sound money and as part of the and gold as part of the Swiss backing the currency. So I think it's in a historic moment from that point of view, and it deserves to win. And Switzerland deserves to return to the very sound and conservative principles that have made the country such a success. And therefore, I sincerely hope that we will win for Switzerland, for our country, and also for the rest of the world, because it could actually start a movement around the world, a movement towards sound money and gold. Being part of sound money, because sadly, without gold as part of backing the reserve, backing a currency, governments will print unlimited amounts of money and destroy the currency and destroy the economy. And you've seen that example in the United States, where 1971 there was gold backing, and the dollar was gold was 1 ounce of gold was $35, and when that was taken away, trillions of dollars were printed, and gold went to 850 before it corrected, and now up at 1200. Gold backing, sadly, is the only way to keep governments under control. And to have a sound economy, not based on debt, not based on massive leverage. So therefore, this is an extremely important initiative, and I sincerely hope that the yes vote will win.
Well, we hope so as well, Egon. We'll be paying close attention to it and make sure to keep our readers on Silver Doctors informed of the proceedings. Truly, I agree that it's a historic vote and has pretty big implications for the market should the yes vote happen. So, Egon, we want to thank you for coming on the show. It was really a pleasure to have you on today.
I really enjoyed talking to you, and thanks very much for inviting me.
And also, before you go, if you could just let our listeners know where to check out your work regularly.
Yes, the best site to go to is our Gold Switzerland site, where is goldswitzerland.com. That site tells your listeners what we are doing, and also you'll find all the interviews, articles, etc. on that site. And also there's a page on the Gold Initiative there where you can read about that. So goldswitzerland.com.
All right, so check out goldswitzerland.com. Egon, we wish you the best with the upcoming initiative. Keep up the good work, and we'd love to have you back on the show soon.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
For the Doc and Eric Dubin, thanks for tuning in to this week's SD Weekly Metals and Markets.
Those individuals who are in charge of monetary policy around the world, I think they're very much aware of what is coming. When I've asked Federal Reserve Chairman in the committee about this, they never said, no, that's not going to happen. They used the word orderly. As long as it's orderly, it seems to be okay.